On my 18th birthday, my dad tossed a $50 bill at me and said, "Leave. I'm finished covering another man's screw-up." He thought it was the final blow. I picked up the cash, smiled, and gave him a sealed envelope I'd saved for years. "I know," I told him. "And my biological father is right outside." He looked out the window and went pale. You know that feeling when your entire life changes in a single, earth-shattering moment? When you realize everything you believed was a lie, and the person who was supposed to protect you was actually your greatest tormentor. Well, that moment hit me hard, right on my 18th birthday. And, trust me, what happened next was a betrayal so deep, it made me wonder if I'd ever truly known the man who raised me. My name is Athena Anderson, and I turned 18 not too long ago. The man who raised me, Richard, marked the occasion by throwing a $50 bill at my face. He snarled, "Get out. I'm done paying for another man's mistake." He thought it was the ultimate insult, his big triumphant moment. But he had no idea what was coming. I picked up that crumpled bill, a strange calm settling over me, and just smiled. Then I handed him a sealed envelope I'd kept hidden for years. "I know," I told him, my voice steady, "and my real father is waiting outside." Richard looked out the window, and I watched his face drain of all color. He'd waited 18 years for this. 18 years of cold silence, of missed recitals, of whispered insults I wasn't supposed to hear. He truly believed that $50 and a slammed door would be the end of my story. He was so wrong. It was just the beginning. To really understand that day, we have to rewind a decade. I was just 8 years old, playing for Elise at my spring recital at Highlands Ranch Elementary. I'd practiced for months, every note etched into my memory. My mom, Linda, was in the front row, recording me on her phone, wearing her special blue dress. The seat beside her was empty. Richard had a last-minute meeting, she'd told me. But even at 8, I knew. He never had last-minute meetings when my little brother, Tyler, had his soccer games. Richard was always there for Tyler, even when Tyler just picked dandelions on the field. After the recital, Mom hugged me tight. Her eyes were red, but she called me wonderful. "Why doesn't Daddy ever come to my things?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She just held me closer, unable to answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Creeping downstairs for a glass of water, I heard voices from the kitchen. Richard and Mom. They didn't know I was listening. "I told you I can't pretend forever," Richard snapped. "Every time I look at her, I see the mistake you made. She's a child, Richard. She's innocent in all of this." Mom pleaded. "She's not my child. She never was. And the day she turns 18, she's out of this house." I didn't understand mistake back then, or why he looked at me differently from Tyler. But one thing was crystal clear, whatever was wrong with me made my mother cry. I went back to bed, water forgotten, and started counting. Not days until I could leave, but days until I could understand why I was never enough. The difference between Tyler and me wasn't just emotional, it was brutally financial. By the time I was 16, I had the receipts to prove it. Junior year, SAT registration was due. $200. I approached Richard in his home office, where he sat surrounded by spreadsheets from Mercer Holloway Properties. "I need money for the SAT," I said, no pleasantries. He preferred efficiency, I'd learned. He didn't even look up. "Get a job. The deadline is in 2 weeks." "I don't have time to. Tyler needs new soccer cleats. The good ones cost $350. I can't be throwing money at everyone." $350 for cleats for a 14-year-old who'd outgrow them in 6 months? But $200 for my college entrance exam was throwing money? It was infuriating. I got a job at a coffee shop called Brewed Awakening, 15 hours a week, minimum wage. It took 3 months to save for the SAT and books and cover my own phone bill, because Richard had kicked me off the family plan at 15. Meanwhile, Tyler got a new iPhone every September, no questions asked. When my SAT scores came back, 1480, 96th percentile, I left the report on the kitchen counter. No one mentioned it. Not Richard, not Karen, his second wife, not even Tyler. Mom would have been proud, though. She'd been gone 4 years by then, taken by breast cancer when I was 12. But I liked to think she was watching somehow. I never asked Richard for money again. If I had to build my future alone, I would. But I kept a meticulous record of every disparity, every slight, every dollar that went to Tyler instead of me. I didn't know it then, but that record? It would become very important. Mom died on a Tuesday in November. She was 41. I was 12. 3 days before she passed, she asked the nurses for privacy. Her voice was a whisper, but her grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. "There's a letter," she told me. "In my jewelry box, the one with the roses on the lid." I knew that box. It sat on her dresser, filled with trinkets she never wore. "Don't open it until you're 16, Athena. Promise me." "Why 16? I asked. "Because you'll be old enough to understand. Strong enough to handle it." I promised. I would have agreed to anything. She died 3 days later, me holding her hand, and Richard standing in the doorway, checking his watch. 11 months after the funeral, Richard married Karen. Blonde, polished, eager to play Mrs. Mercer. Her first act as stepmother? Reorganizing the house. Mom's clothes to donation, books to storage. Her jewelry box nearly went to the attic. But I grabbed it. "That's mine," I declared, clutching it to my chest. Karen looked at Richard. He shrugged. "Let her keep it. It's just junk." I hid the box in the back of my closet, behind outgrown winter coats. And I waited. For years. That's how long I kept my promise. I had no idea that one letter would change everything. On my 16th birthday, a Saturday morning, I opened the jewelry box. Karen had taken Tyler to a soccer tournament. Richard was at the golf course, Cherry Hills Country Club, where he spent most weekends pretending to be more important than he was. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Tucked beneath a strand of pearls was an envelope, my name written in Mom's elegant handwriting. Athena. The letter was 3 pages, on her personal stationery, dated 2 months before her diagnosis. I read it twice before the words sank in. "My darling Athena, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're old enough to know the truth. Richard is not your biological father." My breath hitched. Before I married him, I had a brief relationship with a man named Marcus Holloway. I didn't know I was pregnant until after he was gone. Richard was pursuing me, and I made a decision I've regretted ever since. I married him and let him believe you were his. He found out when you were 3. He discovered a DNA test I'd hidden. He's known the truth for 15 years, Athena. He chose to stay silent because he didn't want the embarrassment of admitting his wife had been with another man. I'm sorry I never told you. I was afraid of losing you. But you deserve to know who you are. Marcus never knew about you. That wasn't fair to him either. This letter has been notarized and filed with my attorney, Eleanor Vance. You are not a mistake, Athena. You are the best thing I ever did. And your real father deserves to know you exist. All my love forever, Mom. I sat there for an hour, rereading it, every word. Everything finally made sense. And nothing would ever be the same. That night, I typed Marcus Holloway Denver into Google. The results were overwhelming. Marcus Holloway, CEO and co-founder of Holloway Capital Partners, a private equity fund specializing in commercial real estate. Assets under management, $2.3 billion. There were photos, a tall man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, the exact same shade as mine. He wore tailored suits, standing at podiums, shaking hands with governors. But it was a Denver Business Journal article that made my heart stop. Holloway Capital continued to dominate Colorado's commercial real estate, outbidding smaller competitors. One of them? Mercer Holloway Properties, Richard's company. It had Holloway in its name because Marcus had been a co-founder 20 years ago. They'd split over a dispute. Marcus built an empire. Richard remained a VP. Richard hated Marcus. I'd heard him complain about that arrogant bastard at dinner parties, blaming him for every lost deal. And now I knew why Richard looked at me with such contempt. Every time he saw my face, he saw the man who had beaten him at everything, business success and, apparently, my mother's heart. The question now was simple. Did Marcus Holloway want to know I existed? I waited 6 months. I needed to be strategic. In September of my senior year, I wrote a physical letter to Marcus Holloway. Not an email. to his headquarters in downtown Denver. I included a copy of Mom's letter and a simple request, an independent DNA test. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I checked the mailbox every single day, my stomach churning with hope and dread. On day 18, a response arrived. Not from Marcus, but from his attorney. Brief, professional. Mr. Holloway would undergo testing at Gun Trust Labs. An appointment was set for October 15th. The test took 5 minutes. Cheek swab, paperwork, a promise of results in 2 weeks. On November 8th, the report arrived. Case number GT 2023. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number, Denver area code. Athena. The voice was deep measured. This is Marcus Holloway. I just received the results. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. I didn't know about you, he continued, his voice softer now. Your mother never told me. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. I believed him. March 15th arrived, cold and gray, the sky heavy with clouds. I woke at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling of the room I'd slept in for 18 years. The walls were bare. I'd taken down all my posters and photos weeks ago, packed them into boxes sitting in the corner, ready to go. Today was the day. I felt it in my bones. I showered, dressed in jeans and a navy sweater, and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Karen scrolled on her phone. Tyler shoveled cereal, glued to his iPad. Neither looked up. No happy birthday. No card. No cake. I hadn't expected it, but the absence still stung. Richard sat at the head of the table, reading the Denver Post. He didn't acknowledge me either, but his jaw was tight. His shoulders rigid. He'd been waiting for this day for years, too. I poured a glass of orange juice and glanced out the window. There it was. A black Mercedes S-Class, parked at the corner of our street, just visible through the bare branches of the oak tree. Marcus was already here. Waiting. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than paper should. Inside, the DNA results, a copy of Mom's letter, and a photo of Marcus and me, taken 2 months ago at a coffee shop downtown. Our first meeting. I took a slow breath. Whatever happened next, I was ready. Richard folded his newspaper. Looked at me for the first time that morning. We need to talk, he said. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a $50 bill. He didn't hand it to me. He threw it. The bill landed on the table, next to my untouched orange juice. You're 18 now, he said, his voice flat, rehearsed. I'm done. I stared at the Ulysses S. Grant on the bill, his face indifferent. Excuse me? I asked, just to draw it out. You heard me, Richard snapped. I fulfilled my legal obligation. You're an adult. Get out. Karen put her phone down. Richard, maybe we should stay out of this. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, filled with 18 years of resentment. I've known since you were 3 years old. You're not my daughter. You never were. I only kept you around because your mother begged me and because I didn't want people asking questions. Tyler finally looked up from his iPad, mouth agape, cereal forgotten. But Linda's gone now, Richard continued, and I'm not paying for another man's mistake anymore. Another man's mistake. The same words I'd overheard when I was 8. I picked up the $50 bill, slowly, deliberately. I didn't want him to see my hands shake. You think this is an insult? I said, a faint smile playing on my lips. It's more than you deserve. I almost laughed. I know, I said. I've known for 2 years. Richard's expression flickered. Confusion. Then suspicion. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. I set it on the table directly in front of him. Open it. He hesitated, then tore it open. I watched his face as he read the DNA results, as he recognized Mom's handwriting on the letter. The color drained from his cheeks. And my real father, I said, is waiting outside. Richard's head snapped toward the window. The black Mercedes. The driver's door opening. A tall man with silver hair stepping onto the sidewalk. Marcus Holloway. Richard's face went gray. No, he whispered. No, no, no. I watched Richard watch Marcus. The man who had tormented me for 18 years, who made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible, was frozen in place. His hand gripped the DNA report so tightly the paper crumpled. Marcus walked up our driveway unhurried, with the confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. He wore a charcoal overcoat and leather gloves, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the March wind. "That's impossible," Richard breathed. "You and him. Linda." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Before you," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "Before she even knew you existed." Karen had gone pale. She looked between Richard and the window, trying to piece together what was happening. Tyler had abandoned his iPad completely, his teenage apathy replaced by wide-eyed shock. "You planned this," Richard's voice cracked. "You've been planning this for 2 years?" I confirmed. "Ever since I found Mom's letter. Ever since I learned that you knew the truth and punished me for it anyway." The doorbell rang. No one moved. It rang again. "I'll get it," I said, walking to the front door. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. I could feel Richard's eyes burning into my back. I could hear Karen whispering frantically, probably trying to figure out how this would affect her social standing. I opened the door. Marcus Holloway stood on the porch, his blue eyes, my eyes, meeting mine. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." I turned back to look at Richard one last time. He was still standing at the kitchen table, the $50 bill forgotten on the floor. "Goodbye, Richard." Marcus didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped past me into the foyer, his presence filling the space in a way Richard never could. "Richard?" Marcus's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "It's been a while." Richard found his footing. "Get out of my house." "I'm here to collect my daughter," Marcus replied, a subtle edge to his tone. "The one you just threw out with a $50 bill." He glanced at the crumpled money. "Generous of you." "She's not your—" Richard stopped himself. The DNA results were still in his hand. "Undeniable. 99.97%, Marcus stated. Gone Trust Labs doesn't make mistakes. Neither did Linda, apparently, when she chose not to tell me. Karen finally spoke. "Richard, who is this man?" "Marcus Holloway." Richard spat the name like poison. "My former business partner. The one who's been sabotaging my deals for years." "Sabotaging?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I believe the word you're looking for is outperforming. There's a difference." I stood by the door, watching the confrontation unfold. A part of me wanted to intervene, but a larger part understood this moment wasn't about me. It was about Richard facing the consequences of his cruelty. "You think you've won something?" Richard stepped closer, fists clenched. "Taking her doesn't change anything. She's still Linda's mistake. She's still a careful—" Marcus's voice dropped, losing its pleasant veneer. "That's my daughter you're talking about. And I've spent the last 6 months learning exactly how you've treated her." The words hung heavy in the air. "I know about the SAT money you refused," Marcus continued. "The phone plan you cut. The trust fund you've been draining. All of it." Richard's face went from gray to white. "How?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that everything you've done to Athena will have consequences, starting today." Marcus reached into his coat and produced a manila folder. He set it on the kitchen counter, directly in front of Karen, who flinched. "Linda left Athena a trust fund," Marcus explained. $180,000, to be managed by her legal guardian until she turned 18. He flipped open the folder. "That guardian was you, Richard." Richard's jaw tightened. "I had every right to access those funds. Raising a child is expensive." "Is it?" Marcus pulled out a spreadsheet, bank statements highlighted and annotated. "According to these records, you withdrew $47,000 over the past 5 years for child-rearing expenses." He looked at me. "Athena, did Richard pay for your SAT registration?" "No." "Your phone bill?" "No." "School supplies? Clothes? Extracurriculars?" "I paid for everything myself," I said, looking right at Richard, "with money I earned working at a coffee shop." Marcus turned back to Richard. "So where did $47,000 go?" Silence. Karen's eyes darted to the spreadsheet. I saw her expression shift. Not guilt, but recognition. She knew where that money had gone. Tyler's soccer camps. Tyler's private coaching. Tyler's endless parade of new electronics. That's embezzlement, Marcus said quietly. Under Colorado law, a trustee who misappropriates funds can be held personally liable, plus interest, plus legal fees. You can't prove I already have. Marcus tapped the folder. My attorney, Eleanor Vance, has been reviewing these records for months. The same Eleanor Vance your wife, Linda, hired to protect Athena's interests before she died. Richard looked like he might be sick. We'll discuss this more after the gala, Marcus added. One more thing. He pulled a second document from the folder, a printed email, complete with headers and timestamps. Richard's face went from white to green. September 12, 2018, Marcus read aloud. From Richard Mercer, Mercer Holloway. To your personal attorney. Subject, inheritance issue. Confidential. I need to know my options for minimizing inheritance obligations to a child who is not biologically mine. Specifically, can I exclude her from my will without disclosing the reason? And what happens to her mother's trust fund if the child is removed from the household before age 18? Karen gasped. Even Tyler looked disturbed. Where did you get that? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Your company's IT department isn't as loyal as you think, Marcus said. Especially when they're offered better opportunities elsewhere. I hadn't known about this email. Marcus had mentioned gathering evidence, but I didn't realize how deep he dug. You've been planning to cut me out since I was 12, I said, the words coming out steady, factual. Before Mom even died. Richard couldn't meet my eyes. The gala is in 1 week, Marcus said, tucking the documents back into the folder. I suggest you spend that time consulting with your lawyer. Because after Saturday night, everyone in Denver's business community will know exactly what kind of man you are. He extended his hand to me. Athena, let's go. I took one last look at the kitchen. At Karen's frozen expression, Tyler's confusion, Richard's crumbling composure. Then I walked out the door with my father. My real father. The story was just getting started. Richard threw me out, thinking he'd won, but he had no idea who my real father was. And the best part? It was still coming. In 1 week, everyone Richard spent his whole life trying to impress would learn the truth about him. Richard, of course, didn't go quietly. The week after my birthday, I moved into a guest apartment in Marcus's downtown building, a sleek high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows. Temporary, just until college, but it felt like a different planet. For a few days, I just breathed. Unpacked. Explored. Had awkward, but genuine, dinners with Marcus, trying to fill 18 years of silence. Then, the attacks began. Tuesday, March 18th, a call from my high school principal. Richard had contacted her, claiming I was emotionally unstable and fabricating stories. He suggested a psychological evaluation before graduation. Thankfully, my principal knew me well enough to be skeptical, but the call shook me. Thursday, an email from CU Boulder Admissions. Clarification needed. Concerns have been raised about your financial aid application and guardianship status. Deadline, April 1st. I stared at that email for 10 minutes before calling Marcus. He's trying to destroy my future, I said, my voice trembling. He can't hurt me directly anymore, so he's going after everything I've built. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Eleanor Vance will handle the university and the principal. Richard is digging his own grave. He just doesn't know it yet. What do you mean? The gala is Saturday, he said. He'll be there to accept his award. And so will we. I didn't understand yet, but I would. Richard wasn't just going to lose. He was going to lose in front of everyone who mattered to him. The 15th Annual Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala. The social event of the spring season. Marcus explained it over dinner on Friday night. For 100 guests, he said, cutting into his steak. Business leaders, investors, city officials. Everyone who matters in Denver's commercial real estate world will be there. And Richard? He's being honored as Developer of the Year. Marcus's smile was thin. An award he's been campaigning for since 2019. It's the validation he's always wanted. Proof that he belongs among the city's elite. I pushed my salad around. So, we're going to take that away from him? No. Marcus set down his knife and fork. We're going to let him take it away from himself. All we have to do is show up. The gala was at the Four Seasons in the Grand Ballroom. Black tie, champagne, a silent auction for children's literacy. Marcus Holloway was the primary sponsor, having donated $500,000. As lead sponsor, Marcus explained, "I give the opening remarks about 10 minutes on stage before they start handing out awards." "What are you going to say?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "The truth. That's all. Just the truth." I thought about Richard, probably at home, rehearsing his acceptance speech, practicing his humble smile, imagining the applause. He had no idea what was coming. "What should I wear?" I asked, a spark of defiance igniting within me. Marcus smiled, a real smile this time, warm and paternal. "I had something delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it a birthday gift. Saturday, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The navy blue gown fit perfectly. Floor-length silk, elegant without being flashy." Marcus had chosen well. We arrived at the Four Seasons together, his hand steady on my elbow as we walked through the gilded lobby. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, well-dressed couples. My world had been coffee shops and high school hallways, not ballrooms and champagne flutes. But I kept my chin up, shoulders back, channeling every ounce of composure I'd developed surviving 18 years in Richard's house. We entered the ballroom at 7:04 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone, wanting to remember every detail. The room was stunning, round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses, a stage with a podium. And there, near the bar, stood Richard. Tuxedo, probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Karen beside him in a red dress, laughing with investors. Richard held a champagne flute, gesturing expansively. Then he saw me. The flute froze halfway to his lips. His eyes moved from my face to Marcus, then back to me. I watched the color drain from his cheeks in real time. He excused himself from his group and strode toward us, his expression murderous. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed. "I was invited," I said calmly. "My father is the lead sponsor." Several heads turned at the word father. Phones appeared. Someone whispered. Richard's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. He'd never been good at controlling his temper, especially after a few drinks. "Richard." Karen appeared at his elbow, her face tight with alarm. "Not here, please." He shook her off. "No. Everyone needs to know what's happening here." He pointed at me, his finger trembling with rage. "This girl is not my daughter. She's the product of my late wife's affair. A bastard I was forced to raise for 18 years. Gasps. Murmurs. I saw at least 3 phones rise, cameras pointed our way. I gave her a roof over her head. Richard continued, his voice rising. I fed her. I clothed her. And this is how she repays me. By showing up here with him. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Richard was doing all the work himself. She's a liar and a manipulator, just like her mother was. Linda fooled me for years. And now her daughter is trying to do the same thing. Don't believe a word she says. The ballroom had gone quiet. Even the string quartet stopped playing. I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder, steady, reassuring. Are you finished? I asked Richard. His face was red now, veins visible at his temples. I'm just getting started. You think you can ruin me? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. I looked at him, really looked at him, for what might be the last time. I don't need to ruin you, Richard. You're doing that yourself. From the corner of my eye, I saw Marcus walking toward the stage. It was time. The MC, a silver-haired woman in a sequin dress, tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It's time to begin our program. Please welcome our lead sponsor and keynote speaker, Mr. Marcus Holloway. Applause filled the ballroom. Marcus climbed the steps to the stage with the easy confidence of a man who'd addressed thousands. He shook the MC's hand, adjusted the microphone, and smiled out at the crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight, he began. The Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala has raised over $12 million for children's literacy programs over the past 15 years. That's something we should all be proud of. More applause. Richard had retreated to his table, face still flushed, Karen whispering urgently in his ear. "Tonight," Marcus continued, "I want to talk about something personal. About family. About the choices we make and the consequences that follow." A ripple of curiosity passed through the crowd. This wasn't a typical sponsor speech. 20 years ago, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly, "I made a choice that I've regretted ever since. I walked away from someone I cared about because I thought I had better options. I didn't know then that she was carrying my child." The whispers intensified. Heads turned, searching for context. 6 months ago, I received a letter from a remarkable young woman. She had spent 2 years researching her own history, gathering evidence, building a case. She did this not for revenge, but for truth. For the right to know where she came from. Marcus looked directly at me. "That young woman is here tonight, and I'd like to introduce her to you. Not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as my daughter." He extended his hand toward me. "Athena, would you join me on stage?" The walk to the stage felt like it took an hour. 400 faces watched me. 400 pairs of eyes tracked my every step. "Holloway's daughter?" I heard. "Who is she? Did he say 18 years? I climbed the stairs and took Marcus's hand. He pulled me gently to his side, facing the crowd. "This is Athena Anderson," he said into the microphone. Or, as I hope she'll allow me to call her someday, Athena Holloway. My daughter. The applause started slowly, then built. Not everyone clapped, some were too stunned, others processing, but enough did that the sound filled the room. "Athena spent 18 years in a household that didn't want her," Marcus continued, his voice ringing with quiet authority. "She was told she was a mistake. She was denied basic support while her stepbrother received everything. She paid for her own SAT registration by working at a coffee shop because the man who was supposed to be her guardian refused to give her $200. I saw Richard's table. His face was ashen. Karen had her hand over her mouth. The other guests were leaning away, as if Richard's disgrace might be contagious. Despite all of that, Marcus said, Athena graduated with a 3.9 GPA. She scored in the 96th percentile on her SATs. She earned a partial scholarship to the University of Colorado Boulder. She did all of this alone. Without help. Without support. Without anyone telling her she was worthy. He turned to me, his eyes glistening. I missed 18 years of your life, Athena. I can't get those back. But I can promise you this. From today forward, you will never be alone again. I couldn't speak, my throat too tight. I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The applause was deafening. Marcus gestured toward the side of the stage, where a woman in a tailored gray suit stood waiting. For those who might question the validity of what I've shared, allow me to introduce Eleanor Vance, senior partner at Vance and Associates. Miss Vance has been the custodian of the documentation that proves Athena's parentage. Eleanor stepped forward, her presence commanding respect. She was in her late 40s, sharp features, composed. Good evening, she said into the microphone. I have in my possession the following documents. First, a notarized letter written by Linda Anderson Mercer on August 15, 2019, attesting to Marcus Holloway's biological paternity of her daughter, Athena. Second, DNA test results from GonTrust Labs, dated November 8, 2023, confirming a 99.97% probability of paternal match between Mr. Holloway and Miss Anderson. She held up a folder, the same one Marcus had shown Richard. These documents have been authenticated and are available for legal review. There is no ambiguity here. Athena Anderson is Marcus Holloway's biological daughter. The room buzzed. A reporter scribbled furiously. Phones were everywhere, recording, posting. Richard's table had become an island of silence. Guests had physically shifted their chairs away. No one wanted to be associated. One more thing, Eleanor added, her voice unwavering. I am also in possession of financial records indicating that Richard Mercer, as trustee of Athena's inheritance from her late mother, withdrew $47,000 from her trust fund over a 5-year period. Legal proceedings to recover those funds will begin Monday morning. Richard stood abruptly, knocking over his champagne glass. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked out. But he didn't get far. About 10 steps toward the exit, Someone called out. Running away, Mercer? He stopped, turned. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. This is a setup, he shouted, his voice cracking. Marcus has been trying to destroy me for 20 years. He's using that girl to finish the job. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at Richard. The DNA test is fake. Richard continued, striding back toward the stage. The documents are forged. This is all a lie designed to humiliate me. Marcus didn't flinch. Gone Trust Labs is one of the most respected facilities in the country. Their results have been used in thousands of legal proceedings. Are you suggesting they're part of my conspiracy? I'm suggesting you paid them off. And the letter from Linda, your own wife, is that forged too? Richard's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. You called my daughter a bastard in front of 50 witnesses, Marcus said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. You admitted publicly that you knew she wasn't your biological child and that you resented her for it. You did that before I said a single word. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Everything that's happening to you tonight, Richard, you brought on yourself. Someone in the crowd shouted, what about the trust fund money? Richard's face went pale. That's a private matter. $47,000. From a child's inheritance, another voice called out. That's theft. The crowd was turning. I could feel it. The collective judgment shifting. The social tide pulling away from Richard and toward us. Karen appeared at his side, tugging his arm. Richard, we need to leave now. This time, he didn't argue. They fled through the side door, leaving their table empty. The Monday after the gala, Eleanor Vance filed suit in Denver County Court. Case number 2024 CV0892. Plaintiff, Athena Anderson. Defendant, Richard Mercer. The complaint was straightforward: breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trust funds, failure to properly manage assets. We were seeking full recovery of the $47,000 Richard had withdrawn, plus 8% annual interest, plus attorney's fees. The evidence is overwhelming, Eleanor told me in her office, high above downtown Denver. Bank statements, withdrawal records, signed authorizations, all in Richard's name. And we have your testimony about what you actually received. Nothing, I supplied. What happens now? I asked. Richard has 30 days to respond. He can settle or he can fight. But fighting means discovery. And discovery means we get access to all his financial records. She smiled slightly. I don't think he wants that. I thought about that email Marcus had shown me. If that existed, what else was hidden in Richard's files? There's something else, Eleanor continued. The university situation has been resolved. I spoke with admissions this morning. They've reviewed Richard's concerns and found them baseless. Your enrollment is confirmed. Relief washed over me. Thank you, I said, a genuine smile finally breaking through. Don't thank me, she replied. Thank yourself. You built an impeccable record, despite everything working against you. Richard's accusations only made him look petty and vindictive. I left Eleanor's office feeling lighter than I had in years. The legal process would take time, months probably, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Richard had spent 18 years making me feel powerless. That was over now. Richard's lawyer called Eleanor on April 10th, 3 weeks after the lawsuit was filed. They want to settle, Eleanor told me over the phone. Full repayment of the $47,000, plus $8,500 in accrued interest, plus our legal fees, $12,000. They're also agreeing to transfer the remaining balance of your mother's trust fund immediately. I did the math. That was over $200,000 total. $200,500 to be precise. And they're not contesting anything. No discovery, no depositions, no trial. Why? I asked, though I already suspected. Because Richard can't afford the scrutiny. The gala was a disaster for him, professionally and personally. His partners at Mercer Holloway have been distancing themselves ever since. A prolonged legal battle would only make things worse. The settlement was signed on April 15th, exactly 1 month after my 18th birthday. I didn't attend the signing. I didn't need to see Richard's face as he wrote the check. I didn't need his apology, which, according to Eleanor, He didn't even offer. What I needed was closure, and that's what I got. The money was deposited into my account 3 days later. I stared at the balance on my phone screen for a long time. $200,500. It wasn't about the money, really. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being told, finally, that what happened to me was wrong. Richard had spent 18 years treating me like I was worthless. Now he had paid, literally, for that mistake. Marcus took me to dinner the night the settlement money arrived. A quiet Italian restaurant in Lodo. "I want to pay for your college," he said after we'd ordered. "All of it. Tuition, housing, books, everything." I set down my water glass. "I appreciate that, but no." He looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because I've spent 18 years proving I don't need anyone," I said, meeting his gaze. "I'm not going to start depending on someone now. Even you. Athena, I'm your father. It's not dependence. It's family." "I know." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "And I'm grateful you're in my life. But I need to do this myself. The trust fund money, my scholarship, that's enough. More than enough." Marcus was quiet for a moment. I could see him wrestling with it. The instinct to provide, battling against the recognition that I needed autonomy. "Your mother raised you well," he finally said, a small smile. "She did." He squeezed my hand. "Okay, but if you ever need anything at all, I'm here. No strings attached." "I know." We finished dinner talking about other things, his business, my plans for college, the apartment I was looking at near campus. Normal father-to-daughter conversation. Or at least, what I imagined normal father-to-daughter conversation might sound like. I didn't need Marcus's money to prove I was worthy. I had already proven that, every single day for 18 years. The fallout for Richard was swift and brutal. It started the night of the gala when the Chamber of Commerce quietly withdrew his Developer of the Year nomination. No announcement, no explanation, just a brief email to attendees the next morning stating that due to unforeseen circumstances, the award will not be presented this year. But that was just the beginning. On April 10th, the same day Richard's lawyer called to negotiate the settlement, Sterling Investment Group pulled out of a $12 million joint development project. The CEO's email, which somehow found its way to the Denver Business Journal, read, "We cannot associate our brand with individuals whose personal conduct raises questions about ethical judgment." The article ran under the headline, "Family Scandal Casts Shadow Over Former Mercer Holloway Executive." Former because by then, Richard was already gone. The board of directors at Mercer Holloway Properties held an emergency meeting on May 1st. I wasn't there, obviously, but Marcus had sources. The vote was unanimous. Richard would resign, effective immediately, with a modest severance package and a strict non-disclosure agreement. The official press release cited personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. No one believed it. Within 2 months, Richard Mercer had lost his award, his biggest deal, and his career. The house in Highlands Ranch went on the market in June. Karen apparently decided that staying in a neighborhood where everyone knew their business was unbearable. I didn't feel joy at Richard's downfall. I didn't feel vindication or triumph. What I felt was something quieter. Something like peace. For 18 years, Richard had held power over me. He controlled where I lived, what I ate, whether I felt welcome in my own home. He had made me feel small and worthless and invisible. Now, the world could see who he really was. And I was finally free. Karen and Tyler were collateral damage in Richard's implosion. I didn't plan it that way, but I couldn't pretend I hadn't anticipated it. Karen disappeared from social media within a week of the gala. Her Instagram, where she'd posted carefully curated photos of her perfect family, went private, then vanished entirely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd stopped attending her book club, her tennis lessons, her charity committee meetings. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had watched Richard treat me like garbage for 6 years and never said a word. Her silence made her complicit. Tyler was different. He was 14, old enough to understand what had happened. Young enough that I couldn't hold him fully responsible. He'd grown up believing Richard's narrative, that I was the outsider, the problem, the reason their family wasn't perfect. 3 months after the gala, I received a text message from an unknown number. Athena, it's Tyler. I got your number from Mom's phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad things were for you. I should have paid attention. I should have said something. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to tell him it was okay, to rebuild some kind of relationship. But another part, the part that had spent 18 years being invisible, needed more time. I typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate you saying this." He replied, "I understand. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready." I saved his number, but didn't add him to my contacts. Maybe someday, but not today. In August, I moved to Boulder. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom unit in a complex near campus with a view of the Flatirons from the kitchen window. I furnished it with secondhand finds from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace, a blue couch, a wooden desk, a bed frame that squeaked when I rolled over. It was perfect. The trust fund money sat in a savings account, earning modest interest. I used it for tuition and rent, careful to budget so it would last all 4 years. My scholarship covered the rest. I didn't touch a penny of Marcus's money. I didn't need to. Classes started the last week of August. I enrolled as a business major with a minor in communications. My professors were demanding, my course load heavy, but I thrived in ways I never had in high school. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who didn't know my history, who judged me only by what I showed them. I got a part-time job at a small real estate firm downtown. Not Marcus's company, not anything connected to Richard, just a local agency that needed someone to answer phones and organize files. The pay was modest, but the experience was invaluable. Marcus visited once a month, always on a Sunday. We'd have brunch at a cafe on Pearl Street, talking about classes and work, and the slow process of getting to know each other. He never pushed. He never tried to buy my affection. He just showed up, consistently, the way a father should. By October, I'd made friends. By November, I'd started dating a guy from my economics class, Jake, a Colorado native with an easy laugh and zero knowledge of my complicated past. I didn't tell him about Richard.